Hello again, it's Liz. Um, this will be part, I think 3. I think this will be the 3rd video. After a while, I'll probably just forget the number because God only knows I try with good intentions to remember things like that and then just don't end up doing it. So, in the last video, I spoke about my beginnings, the beginning of my woundings, my trials, my tribulations. And that would be my mother and my father. Both were mentally ill. So that's that's what I was born into, a totally dysfunctional family with a father who had woundings from the Korean War, and a mother had woundings from her own dysfunctional family, her own terrible childhood. She brought all those woundings into the relationship that she had now. At one point, from what I understood, she had been sexually assaulted at gunpoint. I think she was like 16, 17. She was the baby of the family too, so there was really no one there to help her. By that time, she was working. She barely had an 8th grade education because, well, you can't really focus on school when you're starving. When you don't have the things that you need to be successful. One little thing that they said about my mom was that she used to get made fun of when she was small, when she was about 7 or 8, because she would go around picking through garbage, looking for tin cans, because you could get money for tin, especially during the war. Because, she was, like I said, she was born in 1934, my father 1933. I'm 57, by the way. So, yeah. My childhood was nothing but misery. She would, and my siblings, I'm not sure to what extent they were abused. My brother says it was bad. My sister doesn't really speak about it. My other brother, my eldest brother, we're never close. Because, there's like 11 years difference between him and I. And then 6 years difference between my other sister and my other brother. So, I was the baby, the unwanted one. There's always a little bit of jealousy, anger, fighting between us. A lot of that was stirred up by my mother. She would pit us against each other. Sadly, she was a narcissist and a control freak. And she used religion as a weapon. Yes, sadly, she used it as a weapon. But it was the one thing that I turned to because it's the only thing I had to try and find safety, to find peace, to make sense of everything. Even at a very young age, I was looking for the who, what, why, and where. And that's what I kept doing. I just kept bouncing around from church to church to church as I grew up, looking for that answer, wondering where it was, trying to escape the abuse. As I got older, my siblings were gone. The abuse intensified. She didn't have a problem with hunting me down and beating me senseless. I remember one night she was upset. She'd been drinking heavily. And when we had moved, because my dad, like I said in the last video, he finally broke down and he ended up quitting his job because he just couldn't take it anymore. They lost their house, the house that my mother loved. She made it so beautiful. She did. I have to hand her that. She had a very green thumb with all these beautiful roses, a big garden in the backyard. And all that ended when he finally fell to pieces. And along with him falling to pieces completely, she followed him. She was already kind of, you know, um, mentally unstable. But then when he just couldn't take it anymore, she really just become unhinged. We had to move, of course. We bought this dumpy little house in a really bad area of town. Um, and she got involved with a neighbor who started bringing beer over. I hated that woman. God, she was a terrible, terrible influence. It just made things worse. And that's when my mother became a lifelong addict of beer. And that's what happened. She just started getting drunk and drunk and drunk all the time. She didn't have the focus of her garden or anything anymore. The one little pieces, the few pieces that actually held her together had been disseminated. She didn't have her garden anymore. She didn't have her roses anymore. And she just kind of drifted. Got worse. She started taking extra Valium and drinking at the same time. And she was not a happy drunk. She was an angry drunk. She would beat on me. She would just badmouth me, call me the most horrific names. I mean, like I was saying before, one night she was angry because I was watching Battlestar Galactica on TV. Okay, that's not, that was garbage. And I don't remember the exact exchange, but I do remember the moment that she started just wailing on me, slapping me and punching me and hitting me while I lay there helpless on the floor. And my dad, he just watched. He didn't stop it. And I remember her looking down at me, and I look on her face of pure, utter hatred. And that's when I knew that my mom really, really hated me. She despised me. And she looked down at me and she said, "I wish to fucking God you had never been born. I hate you." And she said it with so much venom that it just literally sunk into my soul. I will never forget that moment, because that was a heart-wrenching, soul-wrenching change. And that was just my life beginning to spiral down even further. So we ended up moving from there, because my dad finally won the right to his disability, his mental disability pension, which they turned it. Why would you do that? He's mentally ill. He's not physically or mentally fit to hold a job, and yet, F you. We have to stop that. Those people who fought in wars for us, those people who received those devastating woundings, they deserve better. And it's going to get better. Just so you know that. It is time for our awakening. It is time for us to rise. And we are going to do that. We will. But anyway, so we moved from there to the home that I considered my childhood home, because we were there, and she was there until she died. And that's when things just got worse. They didn't get better. I started hanging out with the wrong people. Started drinking. I was 10. I was 10 when I first got stoned and I first got drunk. Okay, we tried smoking for a short while, but you know what? My mother was a chimney stack. She would literally smoke like 3 packs a day. My father was no better. And she would do, this was the time, when you would ride around in the car, all the windows up, and those 2 people smoking like chimneys. It was just devastating. I couldn't hardly breathe. No wonder I had asthma as a kid. It wasn't something I was born with. It was one of those situational things. God. And, because I had so much trouble breathing, forget about joining the sports or physical activity. Um, Forget that. I started to get chunky, a little chunky monkey there. I'm still chunky, what am I saying? Anyway, kind of a lifelong thing now. But, yeah, it was just hell. Beatings, beratings, drinking. I would farm myself out to other people's households, to other people's families. It's kind of a sign of dysfunctionality, is you're trying to find that normal. You don't have normal, and you're searching for it. You're trying to find what normal is. You know what's happening isn't right. Okay. That was obvious. Getting beat on, humiliated, treated like dirt, sadly. I don't have that, I don't know what you would call it. I don't have that anger towards that anymore. I let that go. Now what I have is a deep sorrow. Not for me, but for my mother and for my father and my siblings. The pity party for me, I've dealt with that. Okay, and I've dealt with that, constant wallowing in sorrow and pain and anger. I had to, because I needed to move on. I needed to have a life. And so do you. So keep listening, keep watching, and learn about the story so that you can learn about yourself, so that maybe you can learn to cope too. But yeah, her behavior continued like that for a long time. She used to chase me through the house with butcher knives, throw objects at me. And she once threw well, you remember, we used to have glass bottles. Things were plastic. So I remember one time she flung a Pepsi bottle, a 16-ounce Pepsi bottle at my head, glass. And God only knows how I missed it. At the very last second, I moved to the side, did that little side shuffle thing. Oh, shit. Because I was like, there was a lot of oh, shit moments with my mother, and that thing whizzed past my head. And then she was mad because it hit the bookcase behind me and shattered a bunch of her pictures she had up. Boy, she was mad. And then the chase was on. My father, God bless him for this, he put a lock on my door as I was older. So I didn't have to just run outside and pray to God she didn't find me, because she wouldn't come outside. She became xenophobic. Agoraphobic? Is it agoraphobic or xenophobic? I think it's agoraphobia. She became agoraphobic and didn't really like to leave the house. So my blessing was to run outside away from her. And being little, zoom, I was gone. And that's where I spent a lot of my time, was outside. I know today's kids are like, outside? What is outside? What is this magical outside you speak of? But that's what I did. To get away from her, I spent my time at other people's houses and outside, and she didn't really even care. She didn't know where I was at. She didn't care where I was at. She just didn't care about anything, especially not me. The only time she ever cared about me was when she could come and say nasty things to me or try to beat me. That became harder and harder as I grew older, because I became bolder. I became stronger. I became angrier. And that anger spilled out into drugs and alcohol. And to telling her to go F herself. Yeah, that's where that led. That just made things much worse for our family. Not for me. I was like, all right, I'm getting big now. I'm getting strong. And you touch me and you're going to hurt too. I'm going to hurt you. And that's what it was like. It was a war. It was a war zone. You know, the punching, the kicking, the name calling, the alcohol, the drugs. God, it was awful. And then me trying to get away, you know, trying to find better people. There was a part of me that said, this isn't good. This isn't where we want to be. There's that little voice in me. And it was so, so little at the time because there was so much pain and suffering going on that it could barely be heard. But it was telling me, this is not the way. This is not where we go. Now, this continued on until I got into, I think it was junior high. And I started finding better friends. I started doing better things. I quit drinking. I quit doing drugs. I know you're like, you were how old? Yeah. And I started focusing in on me, on trying to be better, on trying to find answers. Because in elementary school, my grades were a disaster. I barely passed, but you know, I was tiny. I was little. I was like one of the smallest kids in my class, you know. I was easy. Even at school, I got picked on. You know, I was overweight. I was small. I was shy and quiet and terrified of everything. So, and the sad part is that the teachers knew about it. They all knew about it. You know, although I will give one of my teachers credit. She was my 5th grade language teacher. And, God, she was awful to me. She really was. But I wasn't the best student either. You know, I'm sure I was a thorn in her side. But one day, my mother came up drunk, humiliating me, and just was going off on all the teachers about this and that and everything. And she was having a good rant. She was on a roll. But so after that, though, that teacher, from about my 4th and 5th grade year, because that's what she did. She was the reading and language teacher. She treated me so differently. She treated me with compassion and kindness. The teacher that just really didn't like me at all. After meeting my mother and dealing with her and seeing what I dealt with, you know, she understood the bruises. She understood the pain. She understood my inability to focus, to concentrate, to be present in class. She understood that. And she worked with me. She worked harder with me, you know. And it was a saving grace. I have to calm myself a bit there. Emotions are welling up. That's another thing. I hate people seeing me cry. I hate it. I just hate it. Because that's one thing I learned. You don't cry. You don't cry because it makes it worse. It made things worse for me to cry, to show pain and suffering. But that's it. That's where it just like that one little bit of hope, that one little bit of it's gonna be okay, came from a teacher who didn't like me, but met my mother. Anyway, this is getting long, so I guess the videos are going to be about 20 minutes long now. But it's important to know this. I don't want to skimp on the details. I want people to hear me and hear what I have to say, because there's somebody out there, maybe several somebodies, that need to know that even through adversity, even through great suffering, you can find hope and you can find peace. You can find your way. Because Source is calling us. Our higher selves are calling us. Our guides are calling us to rise, to wake up. Because this is the dream. We're not humans here having, we're not human beings having this experience. We are souls having a human experience. Remember that. You chose this life. There's a reason you are here. For whatever reason, as either backup for another soul to help them learn, or to help this planet to rise it, to help it rise, to wake it up, to wake other people up. Do not be afraid to wake up. Do not be afraid to look at yourself, because you are beautiful. You truly are. You are beautiful. Okay? Blessings, love, and peace to you all. I will see you in the next video.